Okay, we're good. Okay. All right, guys. Got Andy Moore here. Andy and I go way back to where when we first started kayak fishing many years ago, he actually had a canoe with his daughter in the canoe and stuff, in the terms we did. And he is the fish whisperer. Any species you want. I am going to tell him that you did catch the state record crappie. That guy up in Nebraska City has the record still. Thanks for letting him have it.
It was, yeah.
But he has caught the state record.
It definitely was.
How many GPS locations of that fish?
Yeah. How much did it weigh?
I'm estimating probably right under 5.
Under 5 pounds, probably. And Andy is one of the
Nebraska.
He's one of the most he's very efficient, but he's one of the best finesse anglers I've ever met on the water. And we have fished together many years. He's going to tell you some juice stuff here. He's got good notes I see here, and so we want to welcome him. Let's give him a little hand.
All yours. And back on that crappie, I did catch one that was verified a little bit later. It was 4.6 pounds, so it was 2 ounces shy of the state record.
Wow.
So there is potential, and kind of interesting. That's kind of what I'm going to be talking about. I actually was going to be talking. Well, first let me introduce myself. I know maybe 1 or 2 people just met you. I'm Andy Moore. Grew up in Elkhorn, Nebraska. Lived in Omaha my whole life. Been fishing since I was 2. And actually, last year I was supposed to present on finesse fishing. And this year something kind of came about. So what I really want to talk today about is the catch and release. The reason why I'm doing this is because there's been a little bit of waves on the anti-fisherman realm about how bad CNR is. And I just think that's absolutely absurd and laughable. Matter of fact, in Germany and Switzerland, it's illegal to catch and release fish. How many of you guys keep everything you catch and eat it? Nobody. So if I would ask this question in about 1980, probably about 90% of you would raise your hand. I've been a catch and release fisherman my whole life, and I tell you what, I got looked at weird growing up in the 80s and 90s. Nobody even knew what catch and release was and how important it was. And I'm just shocked that this started. Someone's been planting a seed, these far left animal rights activists are planting a seed, and it's called the Animal Welfare Act. And the definition is, no one may cause an animal pain, suffering, or harm without good reason. Okay. Good reasons, I would like for them to define what a good reason is. I can tell you one thing that, for myself, fishing has saved my life. I honestly would be dead without fishing. I would have gotten into bad stuff. I probably would not be here today. I have seen so many people and talked to so many people that fishing has saved their lives. Vets, PTSD, I used to go with Marty, we used to do Heroes on the Water, where we would take vets fishing that were suffering from PTSD, and the minute they caught a fish, you could just see them they're having so much fun, you know, and it's just, I don't understand where these people are coming from. It's really kind of struck a chord with me. And one thing they do, they also say it's causing unnecessary pain or suffering to the fish. I'm thinking, okay, how big is a fish's brain? Do you think a fish can actually process pain and know that it hurts? You know, nobody will ever know because the fish can't tell us. But I do know one thing: when you catch a small fish and you notice how they're all freaking out and they're shaking and everything, I don't think that's pain. I believe it's their defense mechanism because they've been caught and they're trying to survive and get out. Because what happens when you catch a really big fish? They just kind of lay there and chill out, don't they? Does it seem like they're in pain? I don't think so. They also say that catching and releasing fish is seen as inflicting undue stress and harm on the creature without a justificating reason. Only fish caught can be caught for immediate consumption. I'm just blown away by all this. I don't know, guys. Well, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about catch and release? And
you know, there are people that they've never fished.
They don't understand what fishing brings to us, what the joys of fishing. Like my entire life is based around fishing. I would say, so let's get back to the catch and release. Really, the only cons that they can come up with is, their question is, what percentage of fish actually die after catch and release? So there have been some studies, and they came up with a kind of a rough percentage. 5% to 30% of fish, they think, don't survive catch and release. So if you really think about that, 95% to 70% do survive catch and release. Okay? So it doesn't really hold any weight in my opinion. Now the pros of catch and release are obvious. I've managed lakes probably since the age of 25. I'm still kind of micromanaging a lake. And honestly, the most important thing for a successful lake is selective harvest, catch and release. What selective harvest is, I'm sure all you know, is you try to remove all the numerous fish, all the abundant fish, and throw back the less numerous fish, which are normally the larger fish in the pool.
You know, in Nebraska, it's technically illegal.
Right.
They're not catching them.
Right, so...
The bass anyway.
Right.
It has to be 21 inches.
It pretty much is. They are bass, but
What
yep.
choice do you have?
So things have changed, which I really like. So new regulations this year, they just put in a new regulation for, I think, Prairie Queen, Duck Creek. There's a couple other, maybe Fry Lake that, and so I fish Prairie View a lot. And the past few years, all we're catching are little bass, 12 and a half, 13, 14 inch bass. So in my head, I'm like, they need to start taking some of these out of here. We've lost all our big predators there. 5 years ago, I could go out there and catch 21, 20 inch bass every time. There's a little area I go, I catch one every time. Those fish are gone. I don't know if they've been caught, taken out, whatever. But now we're seeing a problem. So Game and Parks, I don't know if you've read the new regulations, they're allowing harvest of anything under 15 inches. You can have 5 fish under 15 inches, a protected slot from 15 to 18, and you can keep 1 over 18, which I'm not in agreement in, because we need to keep those big fish in there, but you need to get all those small ones out.
For largemouth bass?
Yeah, for all largemouth bass, black bass.
That's what
Prairie
every lake
View.
is certain.
What was that?
Every lake are certain.
No, there's 4 lakes. It's Prairie View, Fry Lake, Duck Creek, and I don't know the other one off the top of my head, but so I'm really happy with the Game and Parks because the past like 10 or 15 years they simplified the regulations, and it was just basically like you said, bass were pretty much catch and release, which can be good in certain situations, but it can be detrimental. So selective harvest and catch and release, in my opinion, my experience fishing my whole life, is probably one of the most important things for a healthy fishery.
So didn't Flanagan for a few years?
So Flanagan was 100% catch and release for the first 3 years.
Yeah.
And now they've opened it up, and now we're seeing, well, I guess time will tell, but it's getting hit hard. I drove by there the other day, there was like 50 ice houses on there.
So I know the crappie, don't they still have a slot limit on the crappie?
I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure it's 10 inches and above you can keep. Anything under 10 you have to throw back. But well, time will tell. But so what happened with that lake? The total catch and release for 3 years works great because they had like 3 apex predators in there. They had bass, catfish. I think they even had walleye in there. So a fishery can survive without catch and release, without selective harvest, if you have enough predators in there to police it and keep it going. You don't have to keep any fish. That's very rare though, especially in Nebraska. Normally we just have catfish, bass, and then you have all the little fish. But no, I'm really happy Game and Parks kind of stepped it up and realized that we need to start doing things. They're kind of being proactive, managing lakes individually versus managing lakes all as one, which is absolutely the wrong approach in my opinion. So I'm glad they're taking steps at that. So, you know, I just had an event today, and my presentation was going to be on finesse fishing, but I don't want to put you guys to sleep and bore you because most people are power fishermen these days. Anybody have any questions or anything?
Bluegill, or especially prone to benefits catch and release.
100%.
The males, actually, they're kind of weird in that only the largest males are allowed to breed.
Correct.
And when the smaller ones can't, they will actually put on more length and girth because of that.
Interesting,
So
yeah.
throwing the big male bluegills back
Right.
directly impacts the fishery.
So my take on the bluegill thing is, it's kind of, and I've gone back and forth with people and everything. I mean, who wants to clean a 7 to 8 inch bluegill? Those are the ones you need to be keeping cleaning. So like in the lakes I manage, any bluegill 9 inch, I let people keep 9 and under, but anything above 9 goes back immediately. I encourage anybody to keep anything under 9. and it helps the bluegill fisher. The bluegill and crappie are even worse. I mean, they're prolific. I mean, you could. One year you could have kind of a normal spawn, you think everything's fine, everything's great, then the next year all of a sudden they have just a spawn of mass proportions, and the next year your lake is chock full of 8-inch crappie. And you're like, what has happened? And then you just have to have intensive harvest or your lake's gonna suffer. Or have good, predators. Like one of the lakes I manage, we put some tiger muskie in there, which is probably the best management tool because they don't reproduce. And you can take them out if you need to, and you can put more in if you need to. So they're great and they're fun to catch. You see my picture, I'm holding a tiger muskie I caught down in Colorado, probably 3 years ago on Antero Lake. That was a that right there. So and so that picture right there, so now I'm going to get to the point like what can we do better with catch and release? I've killed fish before. I was at a tournament at Truman. I had a 12.5-inch bass choke my crankbait in his gills. You believe now he's not going to make it. What do? You feel horrible. You gotta just, nothing in nature is wasted. You have to think that too. But I mean, of all the fish I catch, I mean, I'm pretty sure less than probably 3% die that I release that I would know in a year. I'm pretty confident that I see him swim off strong, but I think as fishermen and us, we really need to kind of keep in mind what fishing does for us and how important fish are to us. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my life is fishing. Fishing is so important to me. I would not survive without it. So kind of made me sit back too, like what can I do to be more of a steward of catch and release. Number one would probably not be wiper fishing when it's 110 degrees out with light spinning gear. I see people do that. Cold water species, you probably shouldn't really be fishing for them when it's really hot. Photographing fish. In a tournament last year, I saw a guy, he had a fish on his board. I was kind of watching him for like 5 minutes, and it was a 20-inch bass. I'm starting to like freak out inside. I didn't want to say anything to him. At least just hold him in the water. I think we all lose the fact we get so wrapped up in tournaments and I need the 5, like we kind of forget like about the fish, I mean, it kind of sounds silly, it's just a fish, but I think we all need to really kind of think about when we're releasing fish. Are we being good stewards? Are we doing it the right way? Is this fish going to survive? If it's not going to survive, and if it's legal within our regulations, we probably should keep it and eat it, But yeah, this is just very, very personal to me, and I can't believe that there's 2 countries in the world that it's actually illegal to catch and release fish because it's baseless, it's absolutely absurd, and like you said, these people, they don't fish, they have no idea. I mean, a fish's brain, their olfactory sense is bigger than their brain, so I just don't think they can like, oh my God, that hurts, and you gotta think too, how many fish do we miss? I miss a lot of fish. I don't catch a lot of fish, so we're giving them a chance, and bottom line is, they have a better chance of survival than a fish we keep and eat. They have 0 chance of survival. That's about it on the catch and release front.
You haven't been confronted out on the lake by one of those people? Or?
No, so it's all kind of spurred on an online forum. There was some like debate going on that you need to keep bigger fish and throw back little fish. And I get triggered real easy. I'm not a good social media person. I get trolled a lot, so I get sucked right in, because I hook, line, and sinker. But something like this is so personal to me, and it's my life. So I get in, and I'm like, that is ass backwards, because you got to think about a big fish and a population. It takes them forever to get that size. They're very hard to replace. So for me, it's very important to throw the big fish. I mean, you just saw Stan, that was just a perfect example of selective harvest. He had a little table of little catfish, throws the big ones back. It's that simple, selective harvest. And I think our fisheries are benefiting from that right now. And it's a good balance right now. So back when I was growing up, it was mostly 80% catch and keep. Very few were like me, catch and release. They thought I was crazy. So now You know, there's plenty of room for all of us. We need harvest. You know, we need people like me, and you need people in the middle that selectively harvest and catch and release. And I think it's all working right now very well. But yeah, so it's just kind of near and dear to me. And so back to your question, so it was on a forum, and then it started going back and forth. And this one guy chimed in and goes, if you can't tell me the mortality of released fish, then it should be illegal. If you don't know how many fish died when you released them, I think that's absurd. You know how many variables there are? There's educated anglers like me. There's uneducated anglers. It's too hard to do. So I mean, I've been researching and looking. That's when I came up with the 5 to 30%. I think 30% is way too high. I mean, unless you're like gut hook and fish. I mean, there are people that aren't paying attention. They're learning. You should probably keep those fish, but I just think that number is really high. And I was kind of thinking like just myself, maybe I might, out of 100 fish I catch, maybe 1 or 2 might not make it. And I mean, that's honest, because I'm watching this fish swim away stronger than when I caught him. Like, I was just ice fishing the other day. I probably caught like 30 or 40 crappie, and every one I released, their fin, they just splashed me in the face. And I'm thinking about this every time. I go, that fish is not gonna die. He's probably down eating again, And then another, I used to tag fish when I'd manage lakes, and I would catch the same bass probably in a 8-year period, probably 4 or 5 times. He's fine. So catch and release were, and I just wish there was somebody in the audience that was on the other side that I could debate, because I know all you guys are kind of with me, but let me backtrack how I became such a catch and release freak. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. We had a little duck pond, and I'd steal there's this bullhead and carp, and there's the little crappy neighborhood pond. Go in my mom's, we'd grab the corn, the cream corn, steal some bacon, ride our bikes. We're like 5, we'd go down there, and there was a giant carp that lived in there, and it would just school us. It would just, I think I was using like a Johnson, one of those little Johnson cast 100-mile reels, and I was so cool. I just launched that thing a mile, but little do you know, you're a kid, the fish are right there most of the time. But anyways, I didn't know what kind of line I had on there. So it'd break, whatever. It was try after try, weekend after weekend. I finally hooked the monster. And we're like 4 kids, stand by, the show with the 5 kids, like the little group of little gangster kids that run the neighborhood. And I'm reeling in this fish, we get it. It's probably like a 5 or 6 pound carp. Biggest fish I've ever caught alone in my life. I'm 5 years old. Stick this thing in a bucket. Ride my bike, I go home. I'm so happy. I show my dad. He's like, what are you going to do with it? You going to eat it? I'm like, no. He's like, you're eating it because it's dead. So my dad actually made me clean it, made me eat this thing. I'm crying. I'm freaking out. So from that point on, I never wanted to keep a fish in my life. I just thought it was fun to catch a fish and have that challenge. So that was kind of what put the seed in me on catch and release, because I didn't like the process of actually cleaning it and eating it. I preferred what that fish gave, that excitement we got from that adventure we got from that adrenaline rush we got from that. So that point on, I didn't take a fish and show my dad, I threw it back. And then back then, we just had Polaroid cameras, and I still have some Polaroids. So when we were kids, we'd have the little Polaroid take our pictures, and I still have probably a few Polaroids from growing up. All right, well, shifting gears. Any more questions on catch and release? I think we're all on the same page. You think I'm, yep?
Well, I think catch and release, you gotta be limited to. I mean, I go out fishing with my little boys, keep a couple crappie, but we don't keep a full limit.
No, keep what you eat.
You keep enough for a couple sandwiches, you put the rest back.
That's how it should
I see
be.
a lot too with some of the lakes I go to, and like Flanagan, they do manage Flanagan pretty well.
Yeah.
I live out in Cunningham out there. There ain't no management out there.
No, there's
and
not.
you watch the people on the bank with 5-gallon buckets.
Yep, they just
There's
fill
a
it.
fish this big,
Yep.
this big. It's in their bucket, taking it home.
Yep.
Which you don't manage it, but why would you keep every single one?
It's that mentality. It's a mentality that I've been trying to break for years. It's limit. People go out fishing because they want to catch their limit. Okay, why are you so obsessed with your limit? Because back in the day, it was cool. How'd you do? We got our limit. I was like a teenager. I'm like, okay, cool. We got 5 limits. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I caught 500 fish today, and one was an 8-pound bass. There's just Well, did you eat it? You know, so it's that mentality.
It's just like hunting. It's just like hunting.
It is.
Too. You know, if guys go out for hunting,
Yeah.
limit bait. And
Let's-
you don't actually eat it and go through it, process it, and do all the stuff.
Right.
It's like, why don't you just keep what you're going to eat for the rest
And,
of
and I totally get it. And their argument would be, well, we're having a fish fry, or I'm stocking my freezer, or I have the right. You know, they do, whatever. But you need to harvest responsibly, and that is a perfect example. It is totally fine to harvest fish, and in most cases, it's necessary to harvest fish. But the whole
At the same time, you gotta
banning.
think of future generations too. Future generations want to catch bigger fish, and if you keep
Right.
all these fish, the big ones have never get a chance to get bigger. To where my kids, your kids, other kids,
Yep.
you know,
And that's-
they don't get that opportunity to see and reel in a fish of a lifetime because everybody kept them.
Right, and that's what I've been preaching pretty much my whole life. And the proof's in the pudding. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to fish on some of the lakes I fish. I'm blessed to help manage a few lakes, and if you do the proper management, you can catch a 19-inch crappie, like I have. I'm blessed. It was on a private lake. It was strictly managed for big crappie. You can catch 18-inch crappie, strictly managed for big crappie. Selective harvest, catch and release. It's rare, you know, these people that are trying to say to ban catch and release, saying our resource is so stretched, it's so thin. That's a bunch of crap. Nebraska has so many resources, so many fish. Our lakes, I mean, despite some of the grumbling on the internet, I think Nebraska has some of the best lakes to fish. We have the best variety, and most of this grumbling comes from Omaha or from Lincoln. They don't get out west. You know, I've caught. I fish the sticks. I mean, I travel all around the country. I fish two kayak circuits, but our Nebraska circuit. I mean, we fish Red Willow, McConaughey. I mean, there's just a big bass come out of those lakes. Good fish. Just people like to bitch. You know, that's kind of what that is. But anymore.
It's the same thing that they do with the big boat tournaments when they catch them all and they release them right there. They were saying that was a certain population, a certain percentage of those fish were dying too as well.
And that's why
Because it's not released back in the same habitat. It's now in a whole new ecosystem of the lake.
And I hate to knock the boat guys and all that, but honestly, that's why I used to boat tournament too, and I hated the fact of harboring fish in a live well for a long time, driving 80 miles per hour in waves, banging them. And they're taking strides to help that and everything, but I'm just not a big fan of it, especially taking fish off beds. You know, and then you're driving these bass miles and miles and miles away from their beds, you know, during May, which whatever, it's all good. But I can't control that, and at least they're taking strides to help. And that's another thing too, you know, like try not to boat flip. Let's take care of these fish that we're using for our benefit. You know, like maybe don't boat flip them, maybe don't suspend them like that and hold them straight out. You know, that's not good for their jaw. You know, maybe support them a little bit or hold them vertical is fine, but don't hold them horizontal like on their lip. That really messes them up. You know, we all can do better. You know, it's the fish. We owe it to the fish because they make me happy. I mean, that's what drives me. I mean, that's what it's all about for me as a fisherman. So I guess my message is that we all can do better. You know, if we're releasing fish, we all can do better. All right. Any more questions on the catch and release stuff?
I got one question. How's the Wanahoo or Wanahoo Lake doing here in Nebraska?
So Wanahoo Lake is not doing good. It started going downhill when the pike started dying off. About 4 or 5 years ago, the pike population started to downhill spiral. It's hard to do pike in Nebraska. I successfully managed pike probably for 30 years on a lake not too far from Wanahoo. They reproduced, they did great. We had a few springs in there, we had some colder water which helped. But we didn't target those fish when it was really hot. I think a lot of the problems with the pike was people were fishing in 100-degree weather, holding them too long. The pike can't handle that. They're cold water fish. So that really started the downhill spiral, because in 2017 I won the whole Midwest kayak fishing series, and literally my card was probably, I think I had like an 18.5, 19, 19. I mean, I had an epic card of bass, like amazing. So like from about 2015 to 2019, it was on fire for bass. Bass fishing was awesome, but kind of got effed up when started losing the pike. And then you're losing that predator. Well, now all of a sudden, all these green sunfish started showing up. Okay, now we have bluegill, we have green sunfish, and now the bass and the walleye have to take care of all those. They were doing okay, then all of a sudden, we're losing bass. We're losing walleye. You can still catch them, but the bass population went to crap. The vegetation gone. I mean, that lake pretty much had no vegetation, and that's detrimental. And the reason that happened is because carp got in there.
From flooding.
The carp destroyed that lake. The carp, and so that lake, you know, I can go back and argue with a lot of people that they didn't design the lake. They designed that lake really well for the situation they had. I mean, that road used to flood like it was a lake back in the probably late 70s, 80s. Sand Creek used to flood so bad. So they needed a dam there. I mean, Wahoo would flood. I mean, Coleman would flood. All those towns would flood. So the dam was necessary. So they designed that north end kind of as a sediment trap, which helped really good because now that north end's all filled in, and you can barely get a kayak back there now. I mean, 2017, we'd go up that channel and slay pike, and you go right up to where the water's coming in, just pitch a jig, you catch 18, 19-inch bass, gone. I mean, I can barely get a kayak back there. And the carp are just crazy. So then fast forward to that flood that we had in the spring, that really kind of, I don't know, I don't think it's going to recover from that. It's getting a little bit better, but that flood, it was so bad because it came at the worst time because none of the crops were in. They had just tilled, so all that dirt and all that runoff, it was like chocolate. It was worse than chocolate milk, and it still has not recovered from that. So you add all those factors and pressure, you know, you got to think too, like that lake got so much pressure when it opened. I mean, everybody was fishing it. That just all those things is kind of, it's really sad, man, because that lake, I mean, I love fishing that lake. We did a lot of tournaments out there. Now we don't even do tournaments out there. It's the biggest lake in our area to host a good sized tournament, you know. So now, like we did our state championship in McConaughey. This year we're doing it at Fry, you know, so it's sad we don't even fish Wanahoo anymore, and it should be like the staple lake in our area, you know. And there's a lot to blame. You got the NRD, the Nebraska Game and Parks. You know, they're kind of like who's, you know. It's just I think you need one chief in that situation, and it's sad, you know. So it went to crap. Now you can still go out there and catch fish. I mean, last year I caught a 20 on a rock pile, but that was it. You know, I fished it probably for 6 hours. I caught one bass, and it was a 20-incher on a rock pile. You know, where before you could go out, I could hit that one, the walkway, the rocks on the walkway, I could fill a cart in an hour, you know, easily, a 14s to 18-inch bass. Now I don't even fish it anymore, it's sad, but. Any other questions? Are you falling asleep? Do you fish?
Once in a while.
Once in a while. How do you know Marty?
Church.
Oh, cool. Okay, so you're from Auburn? Mm-hmm. Nice, man. All right, do you even know what time it is?
11:10.
What is it?
11:10.
11:10, so I got 20 minutes. All right. No more questions on catch and release? Y'all feeling my vibe? Y'all with me on that? Okay, good. All right, so now I think I wanted to talk about the evolution. And me being a 70s kid, and you probably being a 50s kid, I've seen it all. I've lived the evolution of fishing. I was born in 1970. I think right when I was born, the buzzbait was invented. Harker's lunker lure. So the buzzbait was invented, I think, in 1970. You had, you know, TV shows. Virgil Ward was just coming out. Bass just came out. I was a little kid with the metal tackle box that had the Bass sticker on it. You know, just the old man. You know, I thought I was really cool. I was like the first. I think I was 8 and I got my first bait caster. It was I think it was like a Shimano. I don't even remember what, Bantam, Shimano, and I remember I had no idea how to do it. My dad had no idea how to do it because he was a spin cast guy, but I had to have one of those cool reels the guys were using. I mean, I just effed that thing up so many times back, you know, whatever. But I figured it out. So bait casters, the evolution of the bait caster has come so far. Like I use Daiwa now. You can't even backlash those things. The Tatulas, they're like, I mean, I'm not sponsored by Daiwa, but I love the Daiwa reels. And we were talking about this earlier. Back in the day, they only made right-handed bait casters because bait casters were only meant for cranking, trolling, reeling. They were never meant for jigging. They were never meant for casting. They were really only meant for clicking it and cranking in fish. So you need that power. You know, most people are right-handed. You know, there's I don't know what the percentage of left-handed people are at most. So I have never been able to translate my fishing to the left-handed bait caster, which obviously would make a lot more sense because I do a lot of jig fishing. Well, here's how I jig fish. I should be jigging with my right. It's all weird, but I cannot make that transition. So that was a really good evolution over my time period as a bait caster. And they're so well built now that they don't really backlash. They're user friendly. They're easy to use. But back in the day, they're almost impossible. Now, so since I'm a kayak, how many of you got? You're a kayak angler. How many other kayak anglers are here? Okay, y'all are. Okay, where do you have jumped in under your? Is that Ben?
No.
Oh, who are you?
Justin.
Okay.
I do the stakes with the guys in Lincoln.
Okay. What's your last name?
Pedrosa.
Okay, yeah, I think I saw you on that. Last year you fished it with us. Yeah. And what about you? What's your
I'm
name?
here from Auburn now.
Okay, what's your name?
Jordan.
Jordan. Okay, so do you fish with them like when they do the league nights?
I did a couple of years ago. I didn't.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. So I first met Marty. I was in a canoe, and this dude comes rolling up. He has a veteran with him. He's taking him fishing. Need my help. I got him on a good lake, and I'm just like, you know, what are these, like kayak, whatever. You know, I'm a canoes are cooler. You know, like if you run a canoe, you're cool. So I always ran the canoe, you know, and fishing out a canoe is really hard, and standing up and peeing in the canoe is harder. Where these kayaks, you know, I can do a dance on a kayak. It's awesome. So he comes. I'm still on a boat. I'm actually guiding. I guided. Probably boat guided for maybe 5 years, and it was literally like high echelon people. I actually guided Ben Nelson once, and funny story. He was the governor at the time. Came out, you know, he had the state trooper bring him out. He has an escort. I asked, you know, do you want the state troopers know I can't fish? I'm gonna sit up here and make sure nobody like attacks you guys. You know, this is like whatever, security guard. So I got Ben in the boat, and he hooks into a log. And he thinks he has a fish, so he's like fighting this log. I'm like kind of watching him. He's totally snagged. He's like, it's a big one. He's just reeling. It's just dragging. I'm like, okay, you know. And I was like, I think you're snagged. He's like, nope. And he's just sitting in his chair like this. Nope, it's a big one. And I'm just like, I think you're snagged, Ben. No, it's not a snag. And I'm like, I go down and Ben, you're snagged. I grab his line and snag, and I snap. And he's like, oh, I guess I was snagged. So I had to deal with a lot of like weekend warriors in the days. So anyways, I was a boat guy at the time. So Marty comes with all these kayaks, and I'm like, that's weird, you know. Never ever would have, you know, thought of myself being in a kayak. So, you know, the evolution of fishing is also an evolution of the angler. You know, we all evolved as anglers. You know, we all started on shore probably, right? That was the first fishing you did is on the shore. You probably just go down the lake and you fish. Then you evolved to maybe getting a boat, and maybe you evolved to getting waders. I evolved from a boat into a kayak, which is kind of the opposite. You know, most people start a little bit smaller. It's cost effective. Kayaks are cheap. You can buy a small kayak, get on the water. Where a boat's, you know, anywhere from 30 to 100 grand. You know, so kayak fishing is very, very accessible for most people. So that wasn't the reason why I got into kayaking. I was kind of, I don't know. I was really intrigued by the fact that it's a solo sport. I'm kind of a quiet guy. I'm very kind of introverted. I'm an artist, so I always kind of self-reflect on my own. I prefer to be kind of left alone. I'm not a big talker. I'm not like a chatty guy when I'm fishing. I just like to just be in my zone. So I was really intrigued by the kayak fishing because I could just go fish alone, and it's easy to unload, no electronics. I wanted to get away from all the electronics, all the gas, all that stuff. So that's why I kind of got into kayak fishing. You know, it was all paddle back then. And then in about 2016, this Hobie thing came out with the pedal drive. not as big anti. I was like, that's cheating, that's a paddle boat. That is not a kayak. And then, my friends were like, and so here I am, stubborn Andy, just the purest I am. I'm fishing these tournaments in my Predator with a paddle against these guys in Hobies that are, I'm paddling, cast. I held my own. I had my ice fishing flasher just so I could see the depth in my, it's a little Lawrence flasher, just so I could see my depth. I held my own, I did great. So I became a hypocrite and got a Hobie. I'm like, okay, it's still manpower, right? It's still manpower, it's still primitive, it's just a little different. And that changed my life forever. I had a knee replacement, and that was a good excuse for the rehabilitation with the Hobie. Was amazing for my knee replacement. Couldn't really go on a boat anymore because I couldn't stand up. I couldn't run the trolling motor, couldn't stand up or anything. So the kayak was just like perfect for me. You're late.
Is it over?
What the hell? So that's kind of why, I was cool. Okay, it's still manpower. It's cool. So then everybody pretty much got the Hobies, right? So then fast forward, maybe 3-4 years ago, these companies have to compete. So Hobie had the patent on the pedal drive. So then Old Town did the pedal drive, and then, let's put a trolling motor on these kayaks. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, we've crossed the line. Okay, it's whatever. So you take the evolution of the kayak fishing, paddle, pedal, and then now trolling motor. Okay, whatever. I'm cool with it. Whatever. I'll never get one. I'm still a purist. I'm still all manpower. That's why I got into kayak fishing, is to get away from all that stuff. Now let's talk about electronics. It's all good. They're all tools. Whatever. You guys can use whatever you want. I just prefer just a simple side scan. I go on pre-fish. That's all I need. I grew up fishing instinctively. I prefer to kind of just fish that way. I have nothing against anybody using live scope or anything, but like the kayak fishing has evolved so much, they're basically like small boats now. But I totally get it, because buying a boat with all that stuff, you're still probably paying $50,000 more. So I get the fact that it's very economical for most. So I got nothing against anybody using a trolling motor. I got nothing against anybody using sides or forward-facing sonar on their kayak or whatever. They're all tools. It's all good. And I'm a stubborn old dog, and I definitely work harder and I don't work smarter. That's just who I am. So where is this leading us to now? Where's all this evolution going now? I think that it's pretty much leveled out. I really don't think that we could do more. What do you think, Ricky? You think we can put anything more on these kayaks? No? I think we've pretty much leveled out. So I just saw this Lance Burris put a post. He's like, I just got 6.5 miles per hour or something. I was like, that's breaking the law on our lakes in Omaha. You can only go 5. He's like, you could probably pull a tuber on there. But I totally get it. I embrace the physicality of it. I'm not getting any younger. I want to stay fit. I just love that aspect of kayaking, the work. That's why I love ice fishing so much. It's just so much. It's so much work. You're lugging your stuff. You're drilling. Although I did get an electric auger, cheater, because I was hand driller for most of my life. I am a hypocrite. I got the electric, but had shoulder surgery, so I couldn't drill. So I got this, and this thing's amazing. It's just like. So anyways. So I don't get as much work with the electric as I do the hand, but just loading, setting up, running, I still run. I set up some flags, tip ups, so you're running. So you get a great amount of exercise ice fishing. Some guys don't. They just sit in their house and drink beer all day. They have whatever, someone set it up for them. But I just embrace the physicality of things. I have no problem with where the evolution of our sport's going, but. Now it's kind of like, let's backtrack to when I started this whole conversation on the catch and release thing. Just think of all of us, all the tournaments, all the economic impacts, everything we do, how much this fish means is that there's absolutely an absurdity out there that they're going to illegalize catch and release. It just baffles me that could even be It could even be a thing. I guarantee I'm never going to go to Switzerland or Germany, that's for sure. That's really about all I got. You got any questions, anything you want to ask about me personally? Like what makes me click? Obviously, fishing does. Like anything, it's open. You can ask me anything. I'm all.
So you work for Game and Parks then? Or?
No, I have started a decorative painting business in 1994, so I'm an artist. I paint murals, decorative art. I kind of do custom painting in Omaha. I mean, I've traveled, I've done work in Mexico, California, Chicago, New York. I mean, I've been all over the past 30 years, kind of slowing down, fishing a lot more, but no, I manage private. So I'm just kind of I've helped manage a couple lakes just for friends and family, just because nobody else would or knew how. So I've just kind of established my own formulas for successful lakes and what to harvest, what to keep, what not to keep. I just think just my whole, I've been fishing since I'm 2, so I'm pretty well versed in fishing and what makes a good fishery, and just experiencing that firsthand, tagging fish and fishing lakes, understanding growth and all that. I probably could work for a Game of Parks if I wanted to, but they wouldn't pay me enough.
Yeah.
But we do need, I'm happy, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. I think they're doing great the past couple of years. They've really upped their game, like changing those regulations at Prairie View, I don't fish Duck Creek, I don't know, but Prairie View, Youngman needed that probably 3 years ago, but ironically, Youngman's come out of that funk, and Youngman's doing great despite the shad, and I hope they don't touch that lake, and I'll be pissed, and I've let them know that personally, like, don't touch that lake right now. It's starting to heal itself. It's coming back, and it's I don't know, Ricky, if you've ever fished Youngman lately, it's coming back. But Prairie View, I am so happy that they did that. That's going to help that lake out, because we've lost all of our big fish there. I mean, I can't even.
Where's Prairie View?
Prairie View is 180th and kind of Bennington, right across from Newport Landing. It's that little, but that lake. Like I say,
That's not Prairie Queen.
No, Prairie View, Highway 36 is right.
And it's public, right?
Yeah, it's public. Yep.
It's the one west of the houses and all.
Yeah. If you want to go catch a bunch of 12.5, 14-inch bass, that's great. 5 years ago, like I said, I go out there automatic 20, 21 automatic, and then it's just year after year, it's just harder and harder and harder to catch those big fish. And this past year, I fished it so hard I caught maybe a 16 or a 17 out of the 50, 12.5, 13 inches I caught. So when I saw that new regulation come out, I was so happy, because that lake needs intensive harvest of. I suggested, I don't know why they put 1 over 18. That's stupid in my opinion. Like let's just harvest anything under 15 for now, and let the 15 and above get going. I don't know why they put the 1 over 18. I think that's stupid, but they have their reasons.
That's what they do with walleye now. Is they just one over 20?
On certain lakes, yeah. Most lakes do have that slot for the walleye, which and that works. But to try to rehabilitate a lake with bass, that is not the way to do it, in my opinion. I would say open harvest on 15 and under your 5. Take your 5. Let's let that happen for a year. But the thing is, in Omaha, a lot of people do that anyways. A lot of people are breaking the law, like you were saying. Like back to that, and it's hard for us. So here's how I approach it, because I run into it all the time. I was at Youngman 2 years ago. You have 6-pound bass on a stringer. It wasn't 21. It was a fat, probably 19, 20, maybe 5 pounds. And I was like, that's 21. Oh, it's 22, whatever. And I'm like, I can look at it and see it's not. I was like, you gotta be careful. The CEO was in here yesterday, and he's making rounds. There've been words about people dude freaking picked up that bass and left. What do? You can't confront anybody, because you don't know where they're coming from. You can be as nice as somebody as you want, but you can't really cross that line. You know what I mean? We can all try to enforce it and all, but You know, I kind of learned my lesson because I got kind of barked at once, probably like 15 years ago. It's like, you can't, you know, that's you can't keep that fish. You know, you need to release that fish. And he's like, you know, it's like, whoa, dude. You know, so I stopped. Kind of, you can only control you. You know, you have to be really nice how you approach people that are breaking regulations because we're not cops. You know, we don't have guns. Some of us do, but I do carry. I had a very scary incident fishing a tournament in lacrosse. So I do go protected now. Yeah, this was scary as heck. I was launching at a park and it was like 4 a.m, launches at like 5. They just had this epic mayfly hatch. I mean, like, they had the snow plows out moving these mayflies in lacrosse. It was 4, and my wife's with me. She's freaking out. I was like, it's okay. So we go over the bridge to lacrosse, and there's this dude hitchhiking. And I'm like, look, and my wife's like, hell no. And I'm like, there's no room for him. There's a city right there if he needs anything. And he'll walk and get some help. The cop station's right there, so I'm not, whatever. We go over the bridge, we go to this little park. It was Pettibone Park. I'm launching there, caught a bunch under this bridge on a buzz bait pre-fish, and I fill a carb real fast. We're in this park. Pitch black, my wife's in the car, you know, on her phone, whatever, listening to something. And I'm getting ready, and I hear this guy screaming profanities at me. And he's probably 300 yards away. Because this park wasn't very far from the bridge. It's getting closer and closer. Okay. I go on my wife's window. She rolls it out. Yeah. I'm like, on my call, not before call 911. When I say stuff, what's going on? Like, on my call. And at that moment, he was like, right where you are. And she's freaking out. Dude's like, call me the N-word. He's like, you mother. He's screaming out. Obviously, having a mental, he is mental. Off this meds or whatever. I had my light. He's screaming, pick me up, mother. I mean, he's just freaking out at me. At that point in time, I'm like, I'm gonna die, he's gonna kill me, or I gotta go. And I found balance in life, like the best way to approach any confrontations is to remain as calm as you can until it's time, like if you have to go. 20 years ago, I would have gone, I would have knocked him out, probably killed him, I'd still be in jail. You know, so you have to just kind of really remain calm and know that. So I had my light on. The dude had like one eye. The other eye was like blue, looked like a zombie. He's screaming at me. My wife's freaking out, screaming. I'm just remaining calm. I'm just letting this guy just vent on me. I have my spotlight right on. I'm ready to go if I have to, whatever. Screaming. Finally calms down. He's not gonna kill me. He doesn't have a gun. And then his minivan's like right there. So he just needed to ride like 2 blocks, okay, whatever. So he gets in his minivan and he screeches on it. I'm dead, or she's gonna hit me. So I get my kayak. I'm like, I just got this new truck. Please don't hit my new truck. So I wheel my kayak out, and the guy's like, fine. He kind of plays chicken with me and my kayak, and he's gone. And I'm just like, I gotta fish a tournament. It's like the mid-season championship, you know. And I'm like, whoa. And my wife's like crying. She's so upset. We got it. No. He's not coming back, we're good. So I fish, I do pretty good, whatever. So afterwards, you know, we ran into the police officer, told him, because I want to fish that same spot. So my wife's like, you're going to have to get an escort to cops. I'm like, I'll just tell him, you know. So they're like, I was explaining to the guy, you know, the eye, like, oh, that's Bobby. I'm like, okay, cool. They're like, the best thing you can do in that situation is can of mace. Just mace, don't shoot them, just mace them and call me. So now, right after that, I went to Dick's. This is back to the guns and protecting ourselves. I got a big old Bowie knife. So I hang it on my hip just so people see it, you know. So when I'm loading my kayak, I got this big knife hanging right there, you know. You want to mess with me, we'll go, right? So I don't want to shoot anybody, you know. And thank God I didn't hit the guy, because he wasn't rationally thinking. He was, you know, I've dealt with mental health a lot in the past. Not myself. I mean, we all have a little bit of it, you know. We all self-deal with it, but my daughter has severe bipolar, so and she's doing great now, but I've seen it, I understand it. You can't rationalize with someone who's irrational. Right. So anything you say or do isn't gonna matter. So you just kind of have to let them do their thing. If they come at you, I averted a pretty bad situation. So now, instead of carrying a gun, I carry a big knife.
Was that early in the morning in the dark?
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's scary. And there's a homeless shelter in La Crosse right there. No, man, it was really, it rattled me. So, you know, I had to get it, and that's another thing about tournament fishing too, is like, people like you, people like me, we got the skill. We know how to fish, we can do it, it's all between your ears. I mean, really, and when you're approaching a tournament, or even just fishing, I mean, you always want to be prepared because you never know where you're going to catch that huge catfish. Were you prepared? What if your knot wasn't right? What if it broke? What if you're tired? Or you have to be on your game. Because Stan was on his game when he had that picture of his biggest catfish. You know, you all have to be prepared for that moment. At least I always am, like ice fishing. I check my knots every time because your line, I'm using light line, it's scratching on the underside every time. I check everything because if I hook another 19-inch crappie and my line breaks, I'd be devastated. I wasn't prepared. So being prepared mentally is just as important as being prepared with your equipment and all that stuff when it comes to fishing. But anybody got any more questions? Yeah.
And on that, and I've been burned before I'm not a lazy person, I'm a hard worker, but
Me too.
sometimes you can get lazy with things.
You can.
And one thing I've been burned, I always, no matter what, will retie the rods that I'm using for that next trip. Always retie, because a fish is abrasive, or a rock or a tree, you don't know what's under there that line has rubbed against. And you won't notice it until a bigger fish is on and putting pressure, and you'll go, God, my line broke.
100%. So
Yeah.
like Ricky and I, we tournament fish. I normally have in my thing, okay, after I catch 10 fish, I'm behind.
Yep.
Because I've had that, so I use a lot of light line, a
Yes.
lot of finesse, and run like 7-pound fluoro light stuff, and even though it's fluoro and stuff, but it's the knot strength.
Mm-hmm.
That knot loses strength over time too, because
Yes.
you can pull out really hard right away, you catch 10 fish,
Yes.
not broke.
Absolutely.
Weird, you know,
Absolutely.
so I have found a line, like I use Sunline, their FC Super Sniper, excellent knot strength. It could probably exceed 10 more fish than, let's say, your Sea Dar or your other lines, but you still have to check it. Always do, because I've been burned before.
Yes.
I've been burned, like I didn't, why didn't I retie?
I know, I said the same thing.
I knew it! A 3-pound bass just broke my line. How does that happen? It happened to me at Merritt. I had the fish to win that tournament at Merritt, and it was just, when it rains, it pours at tournament fishing, like when stuff's going wrong, like everything was going wrong. Like I was like, like in tournament fishing, like you have to learn to get over things really fast, or it's gonna haunt you the rest of the day. All day. So you really have to bury it right away, or it's gonna haunt you all day. But, no, I mean tournament fishing is. Tell you what, that's probably the best thing for me, because I'm super competitive, and I hate to lose, and I get really pissed when I lose. And it really, over these past, I've been tournament fishing probably for 8 to 9 years. It's really taught me how to lose with grace, but it's really taught me how to win with grace. Like, I don't get over, and it's also taught me too, like, you know, when you lose, you're beating yourself up. Like, what did I do wrong the whole way home? Like, some of these tournaments I'm driving 12 hours. The whole way home, and just like, but when you win, you don't think of anything. So now I'm starting, okay, well, how did I win? What formula was that? What underwear was I wearing? What did I have for breakfast? I mean, all that stuff. Like, what's that formula? So now when I win, I try to break down as much as when I lose. So what competitive fishing has brought to me is balance. Like, big time. It's really helped me to be humble, because like, we all want to prove ourselves. Like, when I first started tournament fishing, I wanted to prove myself so bad that I really wasn't humble. I kind of maybe, you know, rushed to a spot before somebody wasn't cool. Like, yeah, you can fish here too. You know, no, this is I've gotten a lot better with that. Like, you want the spot? Cool, it's yours. Obviously not my destiny. I'll go over here. Oh, I just got a 6-pounder. So you just, like, spirits work in weird ways. And if you're in tune with that, just kind of go with the flow, because they all have, you know, you create your own path in life, but there are signs everywhere and guides everywhere, and you got to learn how to follow those things. So I've really become in tune with that with tournament fishing too. But no, it's really helped me be competitive because I don't get mad when I lose now. I actually get kind of happy, and I get more happy for the people that win, except Ricky. He wins, I just get pissed off. I just yeah, you Heartland kayaker guy. Kidding. No, Ricky's a great guy. Ricky's he's a pretty good fisherman. He's been fishing these tournaments probably as long as I have. Maybe not quite as long, but probably about 6 years, 7 years.
2018.
20? Yeah. Oh, 20? 2000?
Oh, 2018.
I was gonna say, damn, that was a long time ago. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a couple years ahead of you, but yeah, that's kind of when. So like Nebraska, I mean, we didn't have anything. We had like 6 guys in like 2015. We had this little like Tale of Two Cities league, you know. It was just, so we had to travel. I mean, we had to travel to fish, you know, Kansas and other circuits and stuff. And then, yeah, about the year you started fishing is when sticks kind of emerged, and then Heartland kayak anglers came. When they started, like 3 years ago, or it was Central States 4 years ago. 4 years ago. So Central States started 4 years ago, and then that's Heartland now. So we have. So we have two really good clubs in the area, you know, if you guys, and Heartland offer an online thing, which is really cool because a lot of people can't fish the tournament. So Heartland, you know, online option, and they fish, they're kind of like a mini All-American series, you know, they travel a little bit outside Omaha, but not too far within, 5 or 6 hours, Ricky?
Yeah,
about your average.
within probably 3.
So it's a really cool series if you want to branch out. And I'm just loyal to Sticks because I've started with them, and I love promoting Nebraska waters. I love, you know, being in Nebraska and trying to fish, you know, as many Nebraska waters as I can, and Sticks has afforded me an opportunity. I'm blessed with that, and so there's room for both clubs. Both clubs are doing great, and yeah, so. We done?
Oh yeah. We got crappie people that are like schooling out there.
Oh no! Is it crappie next?
Crappie's
so
next.
They don't want to hear my 19-inch and 18-inch crappie stories?
No.
Okay,
They might try
They
to.
don't want to make them feel bad.
The thing is though, if they try to say they caught bigger, then you want to see pictures.
I have pictures.
I'm bored. You have pictures. I'm saying I don't think.
Thank
Hey, thanks. Yeah, give them a hand, you guys.
you.
Thank
you for listening.
And we'll start it again.